We sent them off to war to serve in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, years after their deployments, what have former service members in the Susquehanna Valley been up to?
I'm not the same person.
From moving back home to getting readjusted and serving in new ways.
We got to take care of them now.
Learn what happens after the homecoming tonight on News 8's Chronicle, Life After War. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Lemon. More than 2.5 million Americans have served in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Over the next half hour, News 8's Matt Barcaro will introduce us to these 6 people whose lives have no doubt changed since the wars. Some have transitioned back to their lives before battle. Others are still dealing with the trauma they brought home.
Since the war, Kate Van Auken has rarely been alone because everywhere she goes, Ray leads the way. The two really have been inseparable. And it turns out Kate isn't the only one counting on the company. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Kate Van Auken is now home from a series of grueling missions overseas. In the Army Reserves, she spent 2.5 years processing mass graves in Iraq. She saw things she cannot unsee. And those memories have yet to fade 10 years later.
I don't want to forget. I just want to be able to handle it better.
Ready?
So she and her service dog, Ray, are working through their transition home. It's important for both of them. Ray is a retired Marine sergeant who sniffed for bombs in Iraq. She, too, suffers from anxiety and has nightmares and needs the constant companionship as much as Kate does.
That was good. I'm not sure you can find that loyalty in the real world, in the civilian world, unless it's through a dog.
Down.
The two paired up at a program called Dog Tags in Silver Spring Township. Veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder train their own dogs to become their service dogs. The Department of Veteran Affairs estimates as many as 20% of veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, 500,000 of them, have PTSD. That includes Kate.
Stay focused.
And Dominique Brown, an Army sergeant. He also served in Iraq.
There you go.
And as a member of the Quick Reaction Force was always in harm's way, guarding convoys, rushing to bomb blasts, what he calls regular war stuff. He got himself through 2 years of it. His pit bull, Blue, is now getting him through life back home.
Do you think you'd be doing the things you're doing now had it not been for Blue?
No, I'd be isolating, sitting at home. Because before I had Blue, I isolated for 3 years.
By isolated, he means he rarely left his house in Chambersburg. And if he did, he'd go to Walmart at 2 in the morning when he knew the store would be empty. He came home from war, lost in his own town, and in his own mind.
So, I went bungee cord jumping, I raced a car, did rappelling, because I was looking for that rush. But nothing filled that void. It just wasn't there. You can't fill a rush, you can't replace a rush of someone trying to attack you every day. Bullets flying by your head, you just can't replace that rush.
His fiancée, Misha, noticed a change immediately. The outgoing, goofy guy she helped send off to Iraq was not the man who returned.
He's just completely different now than before in every aspect.
Quick to temper, anxious, isolated. Misha knew those were signs of PTSD.
And I would tell him that, I think you have some issues and you need to talk to somebody about them. And he didn't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's always, I don't want to talk about it. I told him, I said, you have to open up, you have to let it out because, one day it's going to be where you can't take it anymore.
That day came when Dominique got into an argument at home and felt threatened. So he walked upstairs to his bedroom, put on his Kevlar, and stood at the window, gripping his shotgun. When Misha calmed him down, Dominique agreed to check into the VA.
It's hard to get help because you don't want to tell someone that you're broken. The military paid all this money to make you the best that you are. And now it's like, okay, I got to tell someone I'm broken or I'm not 100%. And it takes a lot out of you to do that. Doing good. Mm-hmm. All right.
Since then, Dominique says he's making progress, a little less anxious, a little more patient, and Blue has rarely left his side.
How often are you training at home?
We train like 3 days a week.
His fiancée also noticed a change in Dominique, this time for the better.
Once you go to war and you suffer from combat PTSD, it takes your soul away. And so if he's able to do something to give him his soul back and give him his humanity back, then I'm all for it.
War left its mark on soldiers like Dominique Brown, and even though you can't see it, they know it's there.
In reality, I have changed. I'm not the same person, So I'm just trying to find a new Dominique in order, so to speak, and just cope with it.
Later in the show, we'll share resources members of the military and their families can use to help with the challenges of PTSD. But next, you'll meet two veterans who came home from war to find two surprises that changed both their lives. Welcome back to Chronicle, Life After War, an in-depth look at what Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are doing now back home. Next, we have the stories of two Susquehanna Valley veterans who came home to some surprises. And those surprises changed the course of both their lives. Here's News 8's Matt Barcaro.
Let me get that pen on.
For the last 3 years, Michael Colazzo has barely put his tools down. There's always something he can fix or build or add on.
A pile of wood can become a cabinet or something that some people may see as useless. Make it useful again.
The same can be said about where he lives. His house was not here in 2011 when his Army Reservist unit got the call to go to Afghanistan and he left his wife and daughter for a year. But he knew that would change when he got back.
It's even better to know that there's people back here that are helping your family out even when you can't.
While he was away, York Habitat for Humanity picked the Colazzos as the recipients of a new house. So an army of volunteers, many of them veterans themselves, helped build the Colazzos' home. At the same time in Afghanistan, Sergeant Colazzo was doing some building of his own. He was sent overseas to teach the Afghans carpentry so they could build homes and stores and anything else they needed in the towns then reemerging after almost a decade of war.
Just to see most third world countries and other places, to see how they get by on a daily basis, it's horrible, and it makes you a lot more grateful for what you have over here, and then even better when you're coming home to a home.
News 8 was there the night Michael's deployment ended, and he saw his new house for the first time.
And just to see the amount of effort that all the people have done for me while I was away, it's just great.
Since that night, the Colazzos have settled in and added their touch to the house and added on to their family. A second daughter, Gabriella, is now 2 years old, and raising her is Michael's current mission.
I'm domesticated now.
A soldier back home in a new home and grateful for it. Gratefulness is also something Mike Winkleman feels, and it came to define his life after war, except what was awaiting him was more than a house.
We'll go over what they had from the previous shift here.
Mike is now a police officer in Hamden Township. Along with Robert Higgins, there are 4 officers in the department who are veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. For Mike, his new uniform is a natural fit.
But I felt that calling to a continued service in this way. I felt like through my military experience, I could serve greatest in this capacity.
Mike served 2 tours in Iraq, first to help capture high-level targets, and then to train Iraqi forces. He says each tour made him a better police officer.
You're pretty much called to organize chaos, and the greatest thing I could take away from my combat experience was learning how to deal with those inner stressors, to maintain a level head and do what's right.
10 from 23.
His shift partner on the night we tagged along, Higgins, traded a Humvee for a patrol car. The former Marine was among the first American troops to storm Iraq in 2003, uncovering caches of missiles and weapons along the way.
I'd say it probably goes through my head daily, I guess. Yeah. I didn't have something that was going to be a significant event that traumatized me, but you think about it a lot.
Neither officer has forgotten his time at war and what has happened since. Mike Winkleman didn't know it at the time, but his closest war buddy he made in Iraq would have a big impact on his future. That friend was adamant Mike meet his cousin Crystal, so they met and started dating, and now they are married and their family is growing too.
Yeah, wouldn't have been for that little experience, I wouldn't have my wife, my daughter, and the life I'm blessed to have now, yeah.
Officer Winkleman is finished with his military service, but Kim, Sergeant Collazo is planning to re-enlist in the Army Reserves for 6 more years.
Well, he's the one who said he became domesticated.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, coming up on Chronicle, not all veterans have such easy transitions home. Next, meet a National Guardsman using his own experience to get veterans help before it's too late. For many soldiers, the hardest part of their deployments is when they're over and they're forced to resume the lives they put on hold. News 8's Matt Barcaro next talks with one Cumberland County veteran using his struggles to help other vets like him find ways to fit back in.
Hug a vet, bring it in.
This is not what you'd expect an Iraq War veteran to be doing on a Friday morning on a college campus.
Get a hug, bring it in, man.
But that is exactly why Damian Rhodes is doing it. He's selling hugs, all to raise awareness for an issue he's not afraid to embrace: how to keep veterans who've made it home from killing themselves.
I mean, they should be here, They fought for their country, and, they need to know that there's help out there and other ways to deal with things.
And for Sergeant Rhodes, it's personal.
When you see this kid,
Yeah.
was he at all ready for what was going to happen?
I don't think so. I think I was.
Damian enlisted in the Army National Guard 2 months after his 17th birthday. Like any teenager, he was a little naive, felt invincible, and was not afraid to fight.
I definitely don't think that kid right there had any idea of what was to come for his career in the military.
Not long after basic training ended, he got called to go to Iraq, by far the farthest he'd ever been from home. He was also the youngest guardsman in his unit, but war will make anyone grow up fast. On his way back to base just south of Baghdad one day, a bomb landed near his striker. The impact knocked him and his 4 comrades around like toy soldiers.
After that incident, it was I definitely thought that there was more of a better chance of me not going home after that. I was scared.
He never faced violence like that the rest of his months in Iraq, but his close call with death never left his mind, and even 6 years later and home safe, he still has nightmares about it.
It's just one of those events that you just never kind of forget.
And he's not the only one who came back psychologically scarred. Master Sergeant Tim Hecker served a tour in Afghanistan. Afterward, he and Damian would talk about their war experience, but only ever about the bad food and the hot sand, never about the demons that followed Tim home and hounded him for years.
And I noticed that he would just get really nervous and anxious for no reason at all. And then when I got the phone call, I was just absolutely stunned.
Hecker's wife, Damian's mother, found Tim's body in their garage.
Yeah, he had shot himself.
It's not how he ever expected he would lose his stepfather, a casualty to war, in his own house.
It was hard.
And it changed Damian, terrified him, and gave him a new mission.
Bring it in.
Back at school at Shippensburg University and back at his Hug-A-Vet fundraiser, Damian is accepting this new mission with open arms.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
This campaign to talk about soldier suicide is a way he can honor his stepfather.
Thanks, man.
And serve the veteran community on campus, which is not immune to the suicide epidemic. Damian says 5 student veterans and alumni have killed themselves since returning home, and that follows a trend nationwide. A study this year funded by the Army showed veterans are significantly more likely to commit suicide than the general population. And every day, one veteran who served in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars takes his or her life.
We need to realize that it's in every community, whether you see it or not. The veterans are really struggling, and they feel like there's not really a place to go.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much for donating.
So Damian, a combat veteran at 20 years old, has spent his years since the war working for other veterans to help give them the same chance he has to make a difference.
We should definitely have the rest of our lives. There's no reason that it needs to be cut short.
Help is available for veterans having a hard time adjusting to life at home. There's a Veterans Crisis Hotline staffed around the clock where vets and their families can call for help and resources. That number is 1-800-273-8255, then press 1. And when we come back, a York County Guardsman flew drones for the military, but didn't fight his biggest battles until he got home. The veteran that helped him come out stronger. We've heard about some of the struggles new veterans in the Susquehanna Valley are facing when they come home from war. Some battles are in private. Others are playing out in the courtroom. And that's where News 8's Matt Barcaro found our next veteran story.
We met up with Nick Gerace on a sunny fall day. As the scenery suggests, he's in a good place now, enjoying the life which just a year ago was spiraling away from him.
Eventually it just takes control when you become everything you never wanted to be.
For Nick, life after war has been a difficult journey toward redemption. In Iraq, he flew drones for the Army National Guard and later did the same thing in Afghanistan as a civilian. Both times coming home, though, he could not calm down on his own, so he let alcohol and drugs do it for him.
And why do you think that was? Why do you think you did that?
It's just disgruntled, you know what I mean? I was upset about things. It's a hard time adjusting. I said a lot of it was adapting back to people and just things that they would take for granted, you know what I mean? And it would make me real upset. Like, these people don't understand how good it is.
And his frustration got him in trouble. A DUI, marijuana possession, heroin. He almost lost his house and custody of his 2 young daughters.
I don't want to keep doing the things I'm doing. I don't know how to stop either. So then I'm just going to keep doing it and keep trying to get away with it, trying to find a way around it. And there is none until you go somewhere and get help.
All rise.
That somewhere happened to be this York County courtroom in a program designed specifically for veterans like Nick and run by a judge determined to steer them straight.
Yellow ribbons around a tree are a nice feel-good moment, but they don't take care of soldiers.
Judge Craig Trebilcock knows that because he's lived it.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
We were with Colonel Trebilcock when he graduated in June from the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, another milestone in nearly 3 decades of military service. His most recent deployment was to Iraq at the start of the war in 2003.
Iraq was hot, smelly, and dangerous.
And it tested his limits, especially one day when in the midst of chasing a terrorist, the colonel trapped a live grenade between his feet to protect a growing crowd of Iraqis. For his bravery that day, the Army awarded him a commendation medal.
Is it hard to remember that kind of thing?
It is, because to remember it, you got to put yourself back in the moment, and it wasn't the most pleasant moment.
But those moments overseas helped the judge relate to moments in his courtroom like this one.
You know, recently it's been bringing me down.
Justin Wright is one of the veterans enrolled in a court program Trebilcock started to rehabilitate troubled vets and help them clear their records. Justin's struggles are common here.
Fortunately, it's getting down to the point where there's only a handful of guys that are from my platoon left. I mean, we've lost more guys to suicide and living hazardly than in combat. You know, I mean, it's like every time you turn around, you get a phone call.
You got a future ahead of you, all right? Right now, I know you feel like the human ping pong ball, and you got to be the tough one, all right?
Yes, sir.
You got to be the tough one. Like that little sign in the stores, you broke it, you bought it. We sent these guys downrange in our name. Maybe saying they're broken is the wrong analogy, but they're coming back with some issues because we asked them to serve in our name. We got to take care of them now.
Nick Gerace is working through the Veterans Court program and hopes to graduate next year with a clean record. He's also sober now, has a job, and is enrolled in college, where he's studying to be a high school math teacher, something he has always wanted to be.
Do you feel like this is more of the Nick that you were before you left?
Absolutely. My relationship with my family, my wife, everything has been getting so much better. It's definitely on the up.
When we come back, our last person to meet tonight, she's not a veteran, but is carrying on the legacy of one. Her story next. Welcome back to Chronicle Life After War. As we've been seeing, veterans who have come back from war deal with being home in different ways. But more than 40 service members from the Susquehanna Valley did not come home from war, and their families are still affected by their loss.
Hi, folks. Order for Jeremy.
It's worth coming to work every single day.
And so most days you'll find Dana Sheeron waiting tables at the Mission Barbecue outside York.
We doing okay, gentlemen?
Everything she has come to love is here. Barbecue, people,
Come on up.
tributes to public servants, and permission to talk about
Everything's
them.
okay. What years was he over there?
All day, reminders of veterans' commitment to country is all around her.
Of all the pictures, is this the one that you look at?
This is the one I look at every day. This is my hero.
Dana brought these pictures to hang on the restaurant wall so others can learn what she already knows about her brother, Jerry Pellegrini. After what he did, she feels she owes it to him.
This is going to be more. This is a lot of the newspaper articles, pictures, accommodations.
For 10 years now, Dana has missed Jerry, still cries when a song reminds her of him, still has a hard time at holidays without him. Jerry Pellegrini died in one of the most deadly days for Pennsylvania soldiers in the entire Iraq War. The Humvee he was on ran over a bomb. The 5 guardsmen on board were killed.
So this is Jerry's table.
This is his table.
Dana held on to every picture she could find of Jerry, the badge he wore as a Philadelphia police officer, and the military medals he never got to see. She wants his legacy known. It was a promise she made Jerry when she sat in his bedroom writing his eulogy.
A lot of people in your situation, I think it'd be tough to see their loved one all the time, but it seems like you have him all over the place, surrounded with him.
I do. And it just makes me feel good.
But her commitment is not just to one soldier.
Army Private Oliver J. Brown.
Dana says Jerry's death opened her to the sacrifices members of the military make every day.
Robert J. Fike.
So she has rededicated her life in a way to honor them.
M. Garrison.
We were with her in April at the Prospect Hill Cemetery in York. Every year, she has helped place flags for each of the nearly 300 Pennsylvania service members killed in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Army Specialist Gennaro Pellegrini Jr.
Her brother included.
I will never let him be forgotten. And in the same breath, all of these men and women, we can't let them be forgotten.
Dana now shares a bond with other families of the fallen, like Deb Etheridge, who lost her son Zach Clauser in Afghanistan, and Cher Condor, who lost her son Martin in Iraq. They likely would never have met had it not been for the war and their loss from it.
It's still sometimes hard to believe that he is gone. And I think because I talk about him so much, I keep him alive. He was determined to keep us protected. And I can't tell you how proud I am of him for that.
Thank you for joining us for this News 8 Chronicle. We want to leave you with where veterans and their families can go for help, from getting their benefits to counseling and career opportunities. We have a link to a list of resources on our website, WGAL.com. And we want to end tonight by thanking our veterans of all conflicts and in all branches for their service.